So whether you want to work on your relationships, family, your work, dream career, kind of any part of your life that matters, we use information from the Black Belt Mind to help you plan your way forward, and a technique we call NAP to help you clear out the crap from the past. I am also a TCM practitioner, so that changes how I see things and talk about things. And also, since I am just a voice on the radio right now, this is not medical advice, even if it might sound that way. So let's talk about getting people unstuck.
Ta-da.
Elevator speech over.
Excellent. We're at the top floor. Let's go.
All right.
So
Where are you going
tonight,
today?
yeah, we had talked to you about what we were excited about, and then it just changed sort of mid-stride because of what's been coming up this week for people, and especially what's been coming up today for people. So today we are dealing with why trying to stay positive is making people more stressed.
Perfect.
I was just going to say, we hear so much about toxic negativity, but
Yeah.
there is a version of that on the other side of the coin that we run into a lot with folks. So hence the toxic positivity angle today.
Mm-hmm. And part of what that is, when there's emotional bypassing, when there's positivity pressure, you can actually Google positivity pressure, and it is a thing. It stops you from actually regulating properly. It stops you from actually dealing with informed trauma. It stops you from emotional honesty. And when you suppress emotions that you are genuinely feeling, it actually raises stress hormones more than the emotions themselves. So this idea that you've got to be positive or else is well, personally, I think it's actually quite a dangerous one.
It is.
And I think there's that disconnect in part because we as a culture are taught, and we especially as women are taught, that if we are not staying positive and being upbeat and looking for the bright side of everything, that we're not useful anymore. So I think there's a piece here about clearing out old patterns that way. And I think there's a piece here about the usefulness of Black Belt Mind and NAP acknowledging and accepting what is right now without having to agree that that's the way it's always going to be.
Definitely. Well, because forcing yourself to do anything, it kind of goes against our natural nature as human beings. So you hear a lot in the, certainly in the space we work in, and I think in the self-development space in general, like you hear lots of like positive thinking, right? And positive thinking is a wonderful thing with the right focus. But the way that, at least, and this is all coming from how we encounter it in our work, people get really, really hard on themselves and down on themselves and beat themselves up like crazy with the idea that they've got to force themselves to think positively when they feel different than positive. Okay. And that creates a really challenging and tricky kind of mindset that makes you want to hold yourself to quote unquote perfect standards. Like you have to, if I'm not smiley and bright and sunny and happy and full of light and love all the time, I'm not really being fill in the blank. I'm not being my best self. I'm not being my highest spiritual self. I'm not being loving. I'm not being a good person. Like the list goes on of ways we can fill in those blanks to just beat the crap out of ourselves. So really what we share with people in the on this angle is the idea of alignment. You got to be in alignment. And really simply, if your thinking is out of alignment with how you feel, you're going to be like trying to ride a bicycle with both wheels going in different directions, right? It just doesn't work. It's painful. It's hard. It's super frustrating. And it leaves you feeling tremendously defeated and full of self-judgment.
And that doesn't mean, because I think where a lot of people come from is that they haven't been given the space to acknowledge that they can feel something, explore that feeling, and not word barf it on people. So there's a place where you can feel things entirely, and not everybody has the right to know that. Like they haven't earned the right to know that. So there's a difference between staying falsely positive and yeah, I'm feeling stressed about X, Y, or Z. I'm feeling sad about X, Y, or Z, but I don't need to tell everybody everything, but I also don't need to go that things are wonderful and I've never been better. Thanks for asking. Did you like my impersonation of?
I really did.
Thank you.
It was very good.
Thank you.
It's the thing about the authenticity, right? I mean, if someone asks me how I am, I'll give them the short version, but I'm not going to say fine if I'm not fine.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Because quote unquote, if we use that, even use that term, which I challenge all the time, but even if we use the term positive thinking, anything that comes out of the process of denial doesn't last. In other words, the way that most people are taught, or that they think that they're supposed to use this idea of positive thinking, is that they're supposed to deny and avoid and run away from anything that doesn't feel positive, anything that's quote unquote judged as negative. So it really, really truncates the permission and the space you get to just feel what you're feeling, right? And that's so tremendously backwards in terms of what our inner guidance system is built to do, that it leaves us feeling stuck, forced. We can't sustain any positive momentum. We crash easily. We get exhausted and really worn out by mostly by beating ourselves up to operate within this narrow category of things that we're quote unquote allowed to think, because they are judged as being positive things by us and the people around us. Right? It becomes really, really debilitating, right? And makes it very, very difficult to actually, just like you said, Nicole, to be authentic. Okay. And when we're not authentic, we're disconnected. And when we're disconnected, well, no wonder we get walloped by
We
the
have no
vagaries of
power.
life, because then we're just like feeling like we're just like a wind, sort of like a leaf blowing out there in the windstorm, right? No control, no choice, no predictability, no real confidence other than the forced kind that comes from smiling while we're actually sitting on a thumbtack.
Yep. No power.
Zero power,
Yeah.
right? And it's as simple as zero power. Like, okay, hey, I went into the bedroom to turn on the lamp and it didn't go on. Oh no, that's terrible. I'm in the dark. Well, if you don't plug it in, chances are when you go to flick that switch, it's not going to work. Like it's I say it in that simple sense, because when we are disconnected from our true nature and from our innate knowing and our intuition, it's impossible to feel good. It really is. It's very, very not impossible. It's darn next to impossible to really feel good in any sustainable way.
This is why I started out with a positive news thing, and then quickly realized, no, it's not about putting happy stickers over empty
Mm,
gas
Yeah.
indicators.
yeah,
It's about being able to deal with all of it, but in a solution oriented way, in an empowering way.
absolutely.
It's kind of, I'm just getting a flashback of a talk I did at some school way back then. Um, and they couldn't believe how many times I used the word crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never got invited back.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm here to talk about all of it.
Um, speaking of rolling with what's in the moment, we've just had a few people message us saying that the link is showing that the live stream has ended.
Oh, for
So
the love of God.
And
Ugh. I have
all things
had
holy.
I've had three different TELUS technicians for 3 full days in here this week.
oh
Oh my
no.
goodness.
Like I said, I'm no longer amused by this energy whatsoever. I'll reset it now and hope for the best.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Ugh.
Well, which is kind of powerfully interesting in terms of the timing and the conversation that we're having.
Yes.
And I've had so many instances in my life, Nicole, that mirror what you're talking about. Um, in like that I've just like literally been brought to my knees, looking up and going, okay, what's going on? What's the deal
Right?
here? Like, what's actually happening? Right? You got to be kidding, right? But where I've kind of found some success in learning how to navigate those is kind of like what you just did, right? Like it's in the acceptance of that thing. And you know what? The more and more I cultivate that kind of an attitude towards it, the more and more I realize that, oh, wait a second. I'm running into, let's call it the static of the universe that it can throw at me. And maybe it's not there only to get in my way and mess me up. Maybe it's there actually because it's trying to signal to me that I'm about to step up to a higher frequency,
I always
right?
wonder that. I've always got that debate going because there's that energy that doesn't like the energy we're trying to broadcast. And
Sure. Of
um,
course. Yes.
right. So I always wonder: is this an attack or is this sabotage or is
Mm.
it something else or like an upgrade? It's a
Yeah.
weird way to upgrade, if you ask me. But I don't know how things work. Really, none of us really do. Right? We're just figuring this stuff out. But yeah, but it's I usually roll with it pretty good. But I'll tell you, it's been freaking challenging the last 2 weeks.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet it has. And
I've been cranky.
fair. You know what? And like again, thank you for being the poster girl for what we're talking about, right? Because you're not pretending that what's feeling most true to you in present isn't true. You're not avoiding it, you're not
Yeah.
denying it. And that is what allows us to like do the really positive thing with anything that quote unquote is judged as negative is to accept it. Because when we accept it, we can then get the information from it
Yeah,
and
like what is this? What do you
exactly,
want?
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And we can use it to shift our focus. And even in all the chats we've had off the air, um, I gotta say, you have most definitely gotten very, very good at handling those kinds of, you know, disturbances, let's call them, right? Because to do what you've done for as long as you've done, with the joy that you've done it with, you've had to learn how to handle those things, not just cope with them. Because when we deny what we're truly feeling or we deny what we're truly going through, all we're left with is the ability to cope. And I always equivocate that to the idea of like, trying to judge depth and distance with just one eye, right? When we're only looking at
Mm.
what's positive because we're terrified of what quote unquote we've been taught is negative, well, then we're only looking at things with one eye. And that's really tough. That's why we've got two of them, right? Because we need the binocular vision to judge depth and distance.
That's an
So if you're
awesome
only,
metaphor. I've never
I'm
heard
glad
that
it makes
before.
sense. Yeah, well, I'm glad it
Good.
makes sense. Yeah, because if we're only looking at things with one eye, if we're only like, nope, 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 I'm only going to see what's positive. That's it. I can't negative stuff. Can't look at it. Terrible. Deny its actuality. It's not happening. It's not there. Right. It's kind of the equivalent of looking at things with one eye, and that cuts the other way too, right? Of course, we know that if we're only looking for the negative things, well, and we don't have the other eye open to see positive things that potentially are coming our way as well, then that just takes us down that road, right to the other extreme end of the spectrum. But both are incomplete. And it's really by looking at things, quote unquote, milk this metaphor to death with both eyes, that this other thing emerges that is so powerful to actually having a command of your focus, which is contrast, right?
Mm.
If we don't look at what's negative with the same open, accepting eyes, both eyes, as we do for what's positive, we lose some of the contrast. What does that mean? That simply means that sometimes you need something that's quote unquote judged as negative, bad, or unwanted to help you appreciate and really experience the power of the things that are really positive, right? So that relativity is really important.
And speaking of embracing the negative, it has moved now apparently from the live stream is ended to the live stream has not yet started.
Oh, right. We're having
I'm
all kinds of good times today.
restarting it as we speak. So, as of right now, it says we're back live.
Right.
Woo!
I just
Awesome.
refreshed the whole thing. So,
I
yeah.
love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Ooh,
I,
maybe that's what we need to do to the planet and to humanity.
I,
Just unplug it and plug it back in.
okay, thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for
nice. Just go.
thank you for reading my mind. Right? Like
Ah,
because sometimes that's what it is. It's a refresh that's needed,
Yeah.
right? But you don't really see that that's available if you don't look with both eyes, if you don't accept all that is going on outside of you and all that is going on within you. And I get it, right? Like the idea of like, oh, I don't want to accept negative things. I'm like, people I think get caught in that dynamic and that trap because they're afraid that, well, if I acknowledge that that's the negative thing is happening, then it's going to get more power and it's going to be real and it's going to overtake me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that fear, but I'll tell you what, ignoring it only makes it stronger, because just like, you know, how we look at something and say, oh, well, if I focus on that, it's going to get stronger. Ignoring something takes a lot of focus. Like you got to think really hard to ignore something. So
No, absolutely don't
energetically,
think.
right?
You know what? This is actually an age-old debate of 3 decades on here.
I bet.
Hmm.
I mean,
Not shocked at all.
we've got the hippy dippy types, and we've got the Esther Hicks crew, that just your
Mm,
only job is to only feel good,
mm.
only. Um, well, I can't do only good because
Yeah.
Mm.
shit's
Doesn't so much
flying
work in the
around,
real world.
right? And there's got to be a higher level of consciousness and thinking and solution than that. Like I get it, feels nice.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a nice little party, but really, so I'd like to get your take on that.
for sure. Love it. That's great.
Well, and it takes us back to Black Belt Mind and then what Knapp has borrowed from the Black Belt Mind,
Mm,
and where I think people get hung up is that acknowledge, accept, agree. They think if they acknowledge that something's there, they accept that it's having an impact on them. They slide into agreement of what that must mean and what is
Mhm.
therefore going to have to happen. And when we're working with the Black Belt Mind, when we're working with Knapp, we're saying, actually, I'm going to acknowledge so I can know that it's here, accept the impact it's currently having. And I am sure as shooting not going to agree that it means X when I don't want it to. So it allows us to stay present without getting overwhelmed. Because when I first met Dana, when there was a running joke, my nephews and niece used to listen to a lot of Winnie the Pooh. And so I used to sing one of the songs, the little black, I'm just a little black rain cloud. Um, so Dana became the little black gloom cloud because I was just like, why are we talking about all the negative things all the time? And he's way more comfortable sitting with those things and finding the new agreement. He can float down there at the bottom of the ocean and sit in that quote unquote negativity for far longer. I run out of air, and I'm, we have conversations where I say, this is great. I'm going to expire if we continue to stay here. So I'm going to go do something else now. But when you can get that information and choose what to do with it, use it as information rather than as fact that is never going to change, then you can move from there to actual positivity rather than that white knuckling, it's fine, everything's going to be fine. So it's always fine.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is nothing has any meaning except the meaning we give it.
beautiful.
We're quick
Love
to
it.
label, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
that speaks. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Nicole. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that's one to write down and have in your wallet.
Most definitely. Well, and what's so cool about that, I love it. And thanks for saying that, because, um, my sort of approach through, what we've come to call the black belt mind comes from a very practical application of that very idea. Because what you just spoke to there was the idea that, hey, wait a second. So if that statement is true, then I have a lot more power to influence how I experience something by the way I look at it. Because that statement has resonance, it, and it has resonance because it's speaking to like what I'm going to call a neutrality, right? So when we
Mhm.
can look at something with not necessarily positive eyes that we're forcing the positivity into it, or the negative eyes that we're forcing the negativity into it, we land in this beautiful place where all this power and choice is, right? It's called, and it's in the neutral, because I can look at something and say, okay, well, if I look at it this way, it's negative. If I look at it this way, it's positive. Hmm. What determines my experience is the choice I make about how I view it. And I used to play this game. I don't know if this is something that the audience will find familiar, but um, when I was a kid, we used to you sort of do this little game called camera one, camera two, right? With your eyes, where you like look at something from with one eye and sort of see how it looks from there, and then look at it with the other eye, which was camera. First eye was camera one, second eye was camera two, and your other eye would give you sort of a slightly different view of that thing, because it made you realize and appreciate how much more of it you could see clearly when you looked at something with both eyes. Again, it's sort of that idea of depth and distance, right? That's why we have two eyes to help us judge that. So that neutrality that you spoke of, and that statement speaks of so clearly and so beautifully, is where all the power is. Because I can look at something and go, oh, okay. If I look at it like an obstacle, then it is one. If I look at it like an opportunity, to sound super corny about it, then it also is one. But that also doesn't just give you a choice. It also helps you understand why that choice actually has meaning and power. Because it's like, well, wait a second. If I sit down underneath it, it's an obstacle. If I stand up on top of it, it's an opportunity. What for? Well, it's an opportunity for me to see further and higher than I could have seen if I was just sitting on the ground behind it. It's an opportunity for me to challenge myself on a new level, to grow potentially, to explore something with a confidence that I might not have had if I didn't learn how to turn that obstacle into an opportunity. So all these things in the martial arts and in jiu-jitsu practice in particular are like we just demonstrate them all the time in the dojo, right? So you learn that, hey, if your opponent's got you trapped on one side, that resistance, yeah, if you keep trying to fight your way through it, that is an obstacle. But if you use it as a point of reference to say, okay, well, if my opponent's focus is put over here, human beings can basically only do one thing at a time. That means that he's not paying attention to all this other stuff over here. So I'm not going to fight where the resistance is. I'm going to use the resistance as a marker and go, hey, I know what's happening there. I know where his attention is, and I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to flow the other direction. Okay. It brings like a really, really practical power to that idea of like looking at things with neutrality. Because the problem with toxic positivity, say that 5 times fast, is that, and we see this, right? Just like we see it with positive toxic negativity, but the positive aspect in that statement gets a real like kind of space of its own. It's like, we got to be positive, got to think positive. It actually sets people up to do what is typically understood as the classic definition of insanity. They're like, oh, well, I'm just going to be positive about this thing that hasn't worked the first 10 times I've done it. But because I'm thinking so positively about the fact that I'm just going to get the thing done, even though I didn't do it the first 10 times, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. Right. And keep pretending and keep fooling myself and keep forcing myself into thinking that I feel good about it, that it feels positive to me, that it's the best way to go. And it leads us away from our authentic selves, which is where all the information is.
I like how you mentioned guidance system. The other thing I like about that statement of, nothing has any meaning but the meaning we give it, it stops the belief train from running off the rails.
Beautiful.
Like, if I believe that, then that means that's probably happening, then that's probably happening. If that happens, well, that's probably happening. It always ends in the apocalypse or butt cancer. Like, it's just...
Oh, right, right, exactly. Or both. Yeah, or both at the same time. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. No question. I love that. I got love to launch into that actually, but I want to check with Call first and see if she's got anything to add. So you're not just hearing my voice all the time.
Well, I like your voice. It's a good voice.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's the best one I've got.
I think that check-in with other people also lets us see through our own traumas, because as we all know, I'm all about the trauma cycles. And that's not because trauma is so fun, but it's when we're looking at epigenetics and inherited trauma, so many times we are working on old patterns that say this is where things are bad. And when we can check in with the people around us, it's like when we regulate our nervous systems off of somebody else. It can get us out of that fight or flight. And I was even just thinking the other day, we've got some family that's gone on this really cool trip
of a lifetime.
And they were messaging from the Amazon, and my brain was filling in blanks. So they were like, we went on a trip, on a tour of the Amazon today. And my brain went, where there's wildcats waiting to eat you.
Yeah.
And then they said, and we saw like caterpillars and bullet ants and frogs and spiders. My brain said, venomous spiders, poisonous frogs, caterpillars that are trying to kill you.
Common denominators, things are trying to kill you.
Everything there is trying to kill you. And then I'm looking at the pictures, not of the poisonous frogs and venomous spiders, but I'm looking at the pictures, and these are not people who are sitting there in fear of their life. These are people who are going, this is so cool. And that recognition that we are allowed to rewrite those things in present time, we don't have to ignore the fact that, yes, bullet ants, P.S., Google them, they're bad.
Mess you up.
They can mess you up.
I'm so glad I didn't know about these things before I went to the Amazon.
Our apologies. Although they don't
Yes.
exist in our hemisphere, so we're in good shape.
Okay.
Apparently
It's too cold for them
when
on our side of the world.
when they bite you, it's 100 times more painful than a bee sting, apparently.
Ow.
And they paralyze that limb. But when we're looking at our inherited these things are dangerous lens, then run far, run fast, run screaming. When we're looking at it through our binocular lens of, yeah, maybe don't pick up the spider. That's probably a bad idea. But you can learn from it. And then you take that a step further, and some of the best, cures out there, they've found because they've gone, oh yeah, let's use this toxic thing, right? In Chinese medicine, use toxin to fight toxin. So I can actually prescribe scorpions as part of a TCMT because they are so venomous that there are certain conditions that you're better bet that I'm going to give somebody scorpion tea and ask them to drink it because that's the thing that's going to help them.
Oh, geez.
So bringing that balance back to, yes, this has these potentially dangerous qualities, and it has these potentially fabulous qualities.
Yeah, I'm trying to contain myself because I could take this in so many different cool directions. Maybe
How about the bullet ants?
all of it.
Yeah.
It's all gold. All of it's gold. But maybe the thing I'll focus on is the real gem that you put out there a minute ago, Nicole, was about belief.
Mm.
And there's tons of spiritual texts and scientific studies around what is belief and what are its mechanisms and why is it powerful. And if you think about it, and again, I try to approach things from a really practical standpoint, right? Like, okay, so how does this show up in the real world on a day-to-day basis in terms of people's happiness, joy, and their ability to make choices or not? And beliefs are an interesting thing because if you think about a belief, and I'm going to just throw it out there in maybe a way that people haven't heard before, just to kind of, I'm not saying that I'm right, but just to challenge the question, right? Like you said, these kinds of conversations have been going on your channel for 3 decades here. So I want to put in my little 2 cents to keep that exciting conversation going. Really, a belief really is only made up of a bunch of consistent thoughts with momentum, right? So if you think something once, okay, and you think, okay, well, that could be true. Okay, if you keep thinking that thing, you have to keep having that thought, and that thought gets momentum. Like it's allowed to essentially, and I'm going to quote some science that I will put a caveat on because Call will be able to tell me, being a science research lady. But essentially, it takes about 17 seconds. And like this has been measured neurologically, it takes about 17 seconds for a belief to get momentum, right? So if you're paying attention to what you're thinking and you have a thought and you're like, oh, that's a good thought. I'm gonna think that again, or I'm gonna think that more deeply, right? If you think that thing for 17 seconds, it'll spawn a new kind of momentum in the direction of that thought. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, then it makes sense that beliefs are really just thoughts with a lot of velocity and momentum behind them, right? And that's kind of like, okay, well, if that's implausibly true or worth contemplating, well, then that would explain a lot of why people treat their beliefs like they are facts.
Mhm.
Because a fact, then we start to sort of think of that in a different way too. Like a fact then becomes, well, if a belief is a thought just with a bunch of momentum because it's had time to gain that traction and you've thought it and put energy into continuing to think it, well, then is a belief, is a fact just a belief with a whole bunch of momentum? Could be. Why do I say that? Because man, look at the world, and I say this not to be incendiary, but just out of my own personal life experience, right? There's unfortunately a lot of people, and I've encountered them in this city, and I've had different experiences from the time I was a little kid, my whole family has, that treat the fact that people with my skin color are worthless, violent, and stupid.
Yeah.
All of us. I'm like, wow.
Well, you know, that's what I like in a man.
Well, yeah. Worthless, violent, and stupid. There you go, right? But just because I'm a black man of African descent, by way of the Caribbean, they're like, oh, well, I know what all of you are like. And they act on that belief like it's fact. They'll make judgments about me. They will have thoughts about me. They will say things to me. They will act in particular ways around me without knowing me for a second,
Wow.
just because of the color of my skin. Okay. So I'm using that example just because it's one I've directly experienced. And it's really powerful because I'm like, wow. But it's cool though, because the positive side of that is that I truly can say that I'm generally not affected by that. Why? Because I can see through it as for what it exactly is. I'm like, well, somebody taught you that thought when you were a kid. They kept reinforcing that thought in your head when you were a kid, and it gained momentum. And then you grew up with that thought in your head so thoroughly ingrained that it became a belief of yours, and you never questioned it. Well, and then when you don't question it, it just kind of runs in the background on its own. And then you're looking for things constantly that will tell you, oh, that belief is true, that belief is true, that belief is true, because our inner compass is always trying to help us find things that feel more and more true. But without any awareness, man, that momentum can take you to some pretty weird places. So when I have encountered that kind of treatment in my life, it's really easy for me to not take it personally because I'm like, well, you can't really know anything about me other than how I look because you don't know me. So why would I take something personally from a person who's not spending any time or attention in personally interacting with me? You're just looking at what you think you see and making a decision on my entire being because of that. Okay, so
Wow.
that idea of being neutral, that idea of being uh, aware of what your where your focus is and what you're putting your thoughts on, I would say like that's quote unquote positive thinking 2.0 because it's driven by the idea that, oh yeah, right. So what I look for, I'm gonna see, right? What I find meaning in, I'm going to create. I'm going to put it there. So that's where I think we land in a place where, all right, okay, well, all of a sudden now, focus becomes the thing that is most important to feeling a little bit better every day and letting that build momentum in your thoughts, in your thinking, in your actions, in your choices, so that you're in this momentum of feeling a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better.
At least get into the driver's seat. You
There
know,
you go. Beautiful.
yeah. You know, it's the fact that people like that actually still exist on planet Earth.
Right? Shocking.
It,
Stunning.
it's so, I just don't freaking get it. And it absolutely proves to me that, you know, everyone says they're ready for open contact. Bullshit. You can't even deal with someone with a beige. You know, you can't deal with
Yeah.
someone who's beige. And you think you're going to be okay with a
Right?
giant 7 foot insect
Yeah.
showing up. Come on.
Who
We're
speaks to you in
nowhere
perfect
near ready.
yeah, who speaks to us in perfect English through brainwaves, right? Like, yeah, like you're not going to handle
Yeah.
that. We can't even handle each other. What are you
God.
talking about?
I
And
don't
then
get it.
I mean, Carl's got some awesome stuff to add. I was just going to say too that like I speak to that example because it's my personal experience, but man, that applies all over the place.
Yeah.
right? Like there's
I have never been treated worse because I am a woman.
you
I don't know what you are saying.
you read my mind. There's like, unfortunately, and my apologies, ladies, for on behalf of my gender, but there's like a whole group of men out there who think that all women are the same. They're exactly like this. They all think this. They all want this. They all do this.
Yeah.
They all behave this way. And I'm like, but how? Like this,
I was
right?
raised in the 70s. It was a freaking nightmare. I mean, the
Oh
era of
gosh,
Archie Bunker, and
right?
literally, people would literally say openly, women can't drive. And
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
I used to play guitar, and I went for a job, and they said, what guy would want to learn guitar from a chick?"
of course, right? I mean,
It was awful.
in all of our lifetimes, like I remember when my mom couldn't get a credit card on her own,
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, I
right? Like
could
that was a
even
real,
get
couldn't have a
medical
bank.
coverage.
Yeah,
Sorry, ma'am, we have to talk to your husband.
yeah, couldn't have a bank account on her own. Like
Yep.
that was
Yeah,
a real thing in our
in
lifetimes,
our
right?
lifetimes. I
And I
know.
think that all of those things are anchored in this idea of, that relationship between thoughts, beliefs, and facts, and sort of, what decisions we make and how we are aware of the decisions we're making in those moments when, our old programming kicks in. You spoke to it really beautifully there. So I want to call that to that too.
Well, then we add on the the feelings about that.
For sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So when you go back to the brain stuff, I want to say it's Jill Bolt Taylor, who's a neuroscientist who's super cool, and she's got a great TED Talk. She's the one who was having a stroke and was charting herself,
Oh,
like
right.
tracking, moving back and
Mm,
forth between the left and right hemispheres of her brain.
an amazing TED Talk. For
Yeah, she's fabulous.
everybody listening, like, you're going to listen to one TED Talk, check that one out. It's really amazing.
And if I'm remembering correctly, as a neuroscientist, she says that when you have a thought, it dumps chemicals in that tell you what your emotion is about that thought. And
Yeah.
those chemicals last for about 90 seconds before they degrade and get swept away. So for the first minute and a half, we have a feeling about that thought that turns into a belief. But when we believe that our feeling is true as opposed to just a feeling, that's part of where we start to go off the rails, because that initial feeling, like even when you look at, women weren't allowed to vote. Well, the rhetoric behind it wasn't women aren't allowed to vote. The rhetoric was, oh my goodness, don't you love your wives and daughters? Do you want the pressure on them of having to handle politics? That's not fair to them.
Well,
Don't
it's
you
always
love
for
them?
our protection and safety. And
Right?
Right?
hmm
So
yep,
We could do a whole show on just that.
I know. I
but
probably
if
should.
Yeah, probably we probably should. Let's put it on the list. Put it on the list. We'll get to it.
but if you're someone who has that feeling of, oh my goodness, no, I don't want to hurt the people I love. Well, now your belief is going to change, not because you're a jerk who doesn't want women to vote, but because you're now scared for the people you love. And you've been taught to be scared, and you've been taught to keep them away from that thing. So some of that thoughts turn into beliefs is when you give yourself permission to have the emotion and the feeling and pay attention to the information, but not believe that it's true. That's where it starts to get easier to change your belief again. So if I think I've given you this example before. When I was a kid, my family went to a farm in Iowa, and my mom with the voice said, "Hey honey, call honey, don't turn around, okay?" Well, at that voice, what are you gonna do? You get to turn around. And I turned around, and there was a Great Dane sitting in front of me, and sitting down, his head was higher than my head because I was a tiny little person, and his teeth were bared, and there was drool coming down from his bared teeth, and I literally froze. I felt the ice go through my body, and I just went, I'm going to have my face eaten by a dog now. It's been a good life. And my mom ran over and grabbed me. Now, turns out later that uh, because it was such a big dog, they didn't want the neighbor kids scared. They taught the dog how to smile. So the bare teeth was him smiling and going, "You want to pat me and play with me, don't you?"
That is hilarious.
Now, in that moment, there was a big rush of brain chemicals saying, "Death by dog," terror ensues. And after that, I was afraid of dogs. And my brain did lovely selective belief And when a dog was nice, my brain went, they're just waiting. And when a dog was lunging, trying to get off the chain to get to me, that was true. That was what the belief said. Now, fast forward a bunch of years, we have a neighbor, they had a giant, oh, what kind of that dog from the end of the hall?
Rottweiler.
Rottweiler.
Beautiful dog. Big dog.
Giant dog.
Big, beautiful dog.
I'm outside walking in. I hear a shout, and the voice says, "Don't worry about it, Colleen. She's friendly." But this Rottweiler is coming and jumping at my face. And the belief kicked in hard with the same chemicals of, I'm going to die now. And then as the dog started licking my face repeatedly, and it probably took the full 90 seconds for the chemicals to start going away. And I went, oh, maybe I'm not going to die now. And it was really useful because allowing myself the feeling, not that I had much choice, and then allowing myself the space to question it is what allowed things to start to really shift. We just don't necessarily do that when we're thinking. See, I was going to say that, use your example from earlier of what people say when they see you, but that's all we need is a soundbite of me saying, people are dangerous and stupid, because that's a tip. So.
But super fun.
No, it's not fun.
Fun for me anyway.
So that is my thought on brain
keeps
chemicals.
Coming up as you're talking, one important thing about, we're talking about thoughts and beliefs and all this stuff. I mean, I don't believe anything unless I've had a direct experience with it.
Yeah.
I'm that open, right? Because I know if it's just something you were told, I don't care if it was by a million people, and I kind of just file it until I know. And the only way you know is direct experience. That's the only way you can develop new programs. And that's what you're talking about, Colleen, with the dogs. And think about how hard they must have worked with him to get him to smile.
Smile, right? Come on.
It's adorable. But,
exactly. It's super exciting. But you're so right, Dana Nicole. Yeah.
Direct experience.
Yeah. Well, and that's, one of the principles of the martial arts is anchored in that whole idea, right? And I just see this play out in such practical ways and such useful ways on a daily basis, right? It's like, if it's not true to me, right, it's not true. Like that speaks to that idea of like, I've got to experience it directly for myself. Now, the problem is that you can hijack that phrase and look, if it's not true to me, it's not true, and just like stomp around the planet, ignoring the experience of your experience with other people. But what you spoke to so beautifully is the idea that like that approach, like unless I directly experience it myself, I'm going to file it away until I do.
Yep.
That's like a perfect statement of neutrality in action.
And no judgment, right? Just like filed and for future reference. That's it.
Absolutely, right? And it allows you to have that space to make a different choice about something that you don't know something about yet, right? You can look at something and say, hey, well, that looks like this to me. But until I experience it directly, my final verdict isn't in. My judgment isn't closed. I haven't decided that, well, I know what that is. I know exactly what I want or don't want of that thing. And that's all there is to it. Because when we are actually in participation with someone and something, we learn intuitively way more than we could ever learn by just thinking about it. And I say it to people all the time. I know you'll be shocked. Your whole audience, I'm sure, will be shocked that when people ask me genuine, if they're interested in the martial arts, I have a pretty easy time talking their head off.
I had not noticed that.
Love it. Can talk about the subject from 6 ways from Sunday, from here to eternity. But there is a certain point where, and I always try to be very respectful because I don't want to just bombard people with information that they're not, they ask me one question, I answer 10 other ones. That's not necessarily respectful. But there's a point at which I can only talk to you about jiu-jitsu or any form of the martial arts that I've had the joy to study so much. I can only talk to you about it. I can only suggest you read books about it or watch videos on YouTube about it. Only so much, because there's a point where the real learning will start, and the real learning will take on a whole new momentum if you come and step on the mat with us at the dojo, right? You have to do it, because I kind of captured in an old joke that I use probably to death. That every dojo's heard me say a million times. People will come in and they'll say, "Well, how long is it going to take me to get a black belt?" And I'll go, "Well, I don't know. What time is it?" "Oh, it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon." I'm like, "Okay, great. Well, traffic's pretty slow right now. So the distance from the dojo to the store where we buy the belts, I think about 25 minutes.
But bum.
So I'd say with parking and, going in, actually buying the belt and getting the right size, 45 minutes, you'll get a black belt." And they're looking at me like I've got three heads. And part of the reason why I say it that way is because it's a little bit of a cheeky test, because they'll either go, "Oh, okay, thanks," and then they'll leave, or they'll hang out and they'll be like, "Okay, like, that's a weird answer, dude. Like, can you can you explain that answer to me? Or like, did I ask the question in the wrong way?" And most of the time, people kind of go through, if they stick around for long enough, another 30 seconds or so, they'll go, "Oh, okay, 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 okay. My question is, thank you for answering my question about how long it's going to take me to get a black belt." They're like, "How long is it going to take me to earn a black belt?" And I'm like, X, now we're going to have a whole different conversation. Why is that my little corny, question that I ask people? Because that speaks directly to this idea that if you don't come and experience this thing directly, and you don't take it in for yourself, you don't learn about it, you don't judge it, you don't practice it, you don't try it, you don't question it on your own, with your own eyes and ears and body and heart and soul, well, I can get you a black belt, but the spirit of that thing will mean nothing to you, because you haven't directly found that truth of how you're going to express the martial arts, how you're going to experience jujitsu yourself.
Okay, so since we are the digital dojo and people may or may not go into a physical dojo,
Yes,
then we can expand that, right?
good setup.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. So, for instance, if the belief and the fear and the place where people are getting toxic positivity is, I'm not going to have conversation X with person Y because it's not going to go well, so I'm just going to be shiny happy around them all the time, and hopefully they'll pick up on it and eventually be shiny happy too. Part of the dojo way through that is to absolutely prepare yourself, because you don't have to go in like, I believe the shark researchers when they say that sharks don't really like eating people. I fully believe that. I don't necessarily want to go swim with them, because I don't like, I will believe that from the shore.
That's
But if I have a reason to go into the ocean, I'm going to make sure that I look as little like a seal as possible so that sharks don't get tempted to have a chomp. I'm not going to let the fear run me, but I'm also not going to be foolish about how I approach it. So if we pretend that we are in the life dojo, then I can't talk to this person, to person X, about Y because I'm afraid of how it's going to go. We can prepare ourselves as best as possible. And then the stepping onto the mat is, I'm going to actually have the conversation.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to let my brain chemicals of terror tell me that this person is drooling at me out of wanting to chomp at me. They're just...
Somebody just taught them to smile.
Somebody just taught them to smile.
Yeah, and it's what's again, I cannot believe how fast our time goes. Good Lord. But what I was going to say that I've seen in the dojo many times, which is part of the reason why the whole Black Belt Mind program was created, because we wanted to share the ideas of the real positive and powerful aspects of trying something new, having some courage, giving yourself a chance to fail, all of those things that we kind of get taught directly and indirectly that are negative, and to stay away from them. We see the power of actually leaning into them in the dojo all the time. And so the Black Belt Mind was an attempt to share those lessons with people who really truly never have any desire or any interest to step into a martial arts school, because those lessons are so valuable. We wanted people to have them no matter what, and have access to that kind of thinking no matter what. So what I see and have seen for years in the area, that we've been calling toxically positive today, is that makes people feel like, oh, well, I can only do things that are positive and that make me feel good and that I think are good. Well, the problem with that is then then anything you're going to try, you got to be good at it right away and perfect at it right away. And if you're not, then you stop.
Like me with sports, I'm so good at it right away.
You're amazing at sports games.
Sports games.
And the challenge with that is, man, something like the martial arts and jujitsu, in particular, in my background, anyways, like part of the fun is the failure. Part of the fun and the journey is learning that you got to learn some stuff in order to get better at it. But if you're afraid to ever make a mistake or fail, man, you completely rob yourself of the whole possibility that you could actually be really good at this thing that you think looks really cool and seems really fun and could be really useful for you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and you'll never do it. And if I had a nickel for so many people who come into the dojo thinking, oh God, I'd never want to do that. That's just too, no, it's for whatever reason, I couldn't be good at it. Oh, that's just about violence and it's just too hard. And oh, I got sweating and sparring and oh God, it's terrible. Right. Man, I've had more people approach the martial arts with that mentality who then become like lifelong practitioners. They love it. Like they fall in love with it because they took the chance to go, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll just stay neutral. I'll give it a try. I'll see how it feels, and then I'll make my decision. Right. And that power is, I think, available to us everywhere in life, at every juncture. So that idea of forcing myself to constantly only think positive thoughts, okay, not only is it debilitating in the moment, but also too, like, taking to a real extreme, it can be really dangerous because you're not paying attention. You're only looking at life with one eye, and you're missing the whole other half of the picture that's there to give you, not to hurt you or harm you or terrify you, but to give you a whole bunch of information. And that's where I think a lot of the drive for this conversation started today.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you said guidance system. It's there for a
Got
reason.
you, right? Because man, you know, the pain and the loss of following the false teaching that how you feel doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could do 10 shows on the fallout of that, and maybe that we'll get to specifically as well too, right? Because paying attention to your guidance system, paying attention to how you actually feel about something as compared to how you were taught you're supposed to feel about it, man, that makes literally all the difference in the world.
And that is for our next show.
It is.
Because
I can't
we are
believe
now
we're already
done.
talking about that because it's time to go.
There's one more thing I'd suggest adding to the list too. What you
Yeah.
just briefly mentioned. What martial arts is about beyond violence.
Oh, so good.
Right?
Yes, thank you.
Work with a list. We got lots to talk
Yeah, yeah. Well,
about.
and I can just quickly say about that. The reason I started the martial arts is a very different reason that I decided to stay in the martial arts. And that's right along those lines. So I would love to crack that open at some point.
Yay.
Um, if all are interested, which is great.
Well, and maybe you do a show on your own one of these weeks and you can just like talk pure martial arts. I think that could be useful.
I would be game for it if that would be something people would enjoy.
There you go, please.
I'd
I
happily
think
do
it's an
so.
important conversation because it's not talked about or addressed enough.
It's
Not
it's it's
really.
really it's really true, yeah. And talk about like talk about thoughts and beliefs. There's a whole bunch of thoughts and beliefs that the average person has about martial arts for sure. And man, I'd be thrilled, it's too small of a word, to help sort of dispel some of those. So at least people can make a
Yes.
decision about like what it is, like really, and what choice they can make about it with the real information, or at least an attempt to share an authentic experience. I'm not saying I'm right about it all. I'm just saying I can share my experience of it, which feels quite contrary to what a lot of people, I think, just naturally are taught to think
Yeah.
because they don't have any exposure otherwise. And that's okay. But I'd love to clear that up for folks.
For instance, I have a black belt in integrated combat arts,
Yes,
and
you do.
people in the past, strangers in the past, have left their babies with me at airports. So
True.
I don't really.
Yeah, side hustle. Awesome.
Yes. To be continued for sure.
We've got a couple minutes left for some
Yeah.
shameless self promotion. What you got for us?
What One of our favorite parts of the show.
I think we go back to the audios just because they're exciting. So the audios, if people go to thedigitaldojo.net, there are 3 sets of 3 audios each that you can sign up for. You can listen to for free. If you want, there's one called Unweighting that you can then pay and sign up and do 21 full nights. But what we're finding exciting, because these are inherited trauma patterns we're dealing with, really old inherited trauma patterns. One set is for cravings, one set is for pain, and one set is for unweighting, so stress around metabolism and body image and things. But with the old inherited trauma patterns, and all you have to do is press play and then go to sleep, and your brain still continues in that beautiful hypnagogic state between sleep and waking, continues to process that, is people are having these beautiful, beautiful changes in their life in places they expect and hope to, but also in places they don't expect and hope to. And we just added to the website, there's a list there of the upcoming audio programs that we're thinking of doing. So we're thinking of doing one on money. We're thinking of doing one on studying and focus, stress and anxiety. So if there's something that anyone thinks would be useful, you can go and click the little check boxes right on the website and vote for what you think we should do next.
Yeah, give us your suggestions, please, because we
Yeah,
want
we'd
to
love
give you
to be useful.
information that is going to feel really useful and relevant. And along with those new things that Carl talked about, we've got all our socials, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, the Facebooks is at thedigitaldojo.net. We've got an amazing discount for all News for the Soul audience members. If that sounds appealing, come check us out at thedigitaldojo.net. Tons of cool stuff that you can check out immediately, instantly, for free. Take a
Oh,
look
and
around.
Pinterest now. We're on
And
Pinterest.
oh, and now we're on Pinterest as well as the socials go. So lots of goodies there that you can access 24/7 and get an immediate direct experience of what it is that we're offering.